So just a real quick introduction to our company here. So Appalachian Power, a little over 1 million customers, about 3,200 employees. A little over 8,000 megawatts of generation within our portfolio. We have coal, supercritical coal-fired. We have a Mountaineer plant, our John Amos plant, Mitchell plant in West Virginia. We have a combined cycle gas plant that we own that's actually in Ohio called our Dresden plant. We have a coal-fired plant that we actually converted to gas in Virginia, our Clinch River plant. And then we have multiple hydroelectric plants, but the one on here noted as Smith Mountain is actually a pump storage hydro facility. We have wind and also solar in our portfolio. Revenue for our company is about $3 billion. Net income is a little over $311 million. These are 2017 numbers. And then our net plant in service, a little over $11 billion. So we are a subsidiary of our parent holding company, which is American Electric Power. They're headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. And this kind of gives you kind of a breakout of the territories that we cover, either in what I'll call the traditional bundled regulated utility or in our vertically integrated utilities, and then also in our transmission and distribution utilities, or basically our deregulated states. So overall, regulated and competitive, about 5.4 million customers. We cover a little over 200,000 square miles of territory. We have 40,000 miles of transmission, 224,000 miles of distribution, 26,000 megawatts of generation capacity, and our total asset base is about $63.4 billion. And you can see there, if you count those all up, we're in 11 states.
All right, good morning. My name is Darius Rakowski, and my team operates NV Energy power generation assets. We are facing a lot of challenges, as you can imagine, and the team is doing a great job. We'd like to thank them for that. So we are a part of Berkshire Hathaway Energy family. Berkshire has 3 vertically integrated utilities. That includes Pacific Corp with Rocky Mountain Power, us, NV Energy, and Mid-American. Mid-American operates in the Midwest. Pacific Corp, as you can see, green, blue, and yellow, operates in the western states, and we, NV Energy, operate only in Nevada. Berkshire Hathaway Energy also has transmission organizations, transmission companies. One of them is operating in UK, Northern Power Grid, and second is Altalink, operating in Alberta, Canada. Additionally, we have operations in the Philippines. Berkshire Hathaway Energy has 11 million customers worldwide. It's a top-rated facility, a top-rated service provider, and the industry employs 21,000 employees, has excellent safety statistics. Our incident rate is 0.64%, so very, very low rate. 1/3 of our energy is provided from renewable resources or non-carbon resources, and all rates are below national average. We have $84 billion in total assets and 33,000 miles of transmission lines, over 16,000 miles of natural gas pipelines. NV Energy, as I said, operates in Nevada only in mainly two regions. Southern region is kind of densely populated. It's around Las Vegas. And northern region is pretty vast, not as densely populated, a little bit older transmission system. The headquarters in Las Vegas. We have a little bit over 2,400 employees, 1.4 million electric and 160,000 gas customers, and we service 90% of Nevada population. In addition to our native population, we have about 45 million tourists annually, which is about 800,000 weekly. So you can imagine a lot of tourists coming to our state. We have about slightly over 6,000 megawatts of own power generation in two companies. Nevada Power Company and Sierra Pacific Power Company. In Nevada Power, in the Nevada Power Company, we provide electrical services to pretty much Vegas and surrounding areas. We have slightly over 900,000 electrical customers and slightly over 4,600 megawatts of own power generation capacity. Up north, it's mainly Reno and vicinities, 342,000 electrical customers, 164 gas customers, and almost 1,400 megawatts of owned generation capacity. Here's the breakdown of our current and projected portfolios. Right now, we have a natural gas, coal, and renewables. As you know, we are getting out of coal, and by the end of 2025, we will get out completely out of coal generation. We own one solar plant in the south, which is Nellis Solar Array. And we have slightly below 3,000 megawatts of renewable generation under the PPA contracts. One of the southern coal plants was Reed Gardner Station, which was retired in 2017. Actually, was retired in two phases. First 3 units were retired in 14, and last units was retired in 17. And we are expanding our renewable portfolio. Our short-term goal is to double our renewable generation by 2023. Our 2025 projected portfolio shows the exit of the Navajo generation plant. That's going to happen this year. We're going to retire North Valmy power plant in 2025. That's going to end our coal ownership. We are right now expanding our renewable portfolio and going to add over 1,000 megawatts of low-cost solar. That's going to happen by the end of 2021. And we still continue development of renewable energy, mainly PV solar in this region. It's going to be significantly more than this projected 1,000. We have 6 PV solar plants, 3 up north and 3 in the south. The southern plants are Eagle Shadow Mountain Solar, 300 megawatts, Copper Mountain, which is 250 megawatts, and Techren Solar, 50 megawatts. Up north, also 3 plants, Dutch Flat Solar, 200 megawatts. This plant, actually all 3 plants up north, have a battery storage to extend solar operation to the evening hours. All of them have a 4-hour storage. So for 200 megawatt plant, it equates to 50 megawatt battery storage. Second plant, Fish Spring Ranch Solar, will generate 100 megawatts and will have a 25 megawatt battery storage. And last one, Battle Mountain Solar, will have 101 megawatts with 25 megawatts battery storage. Thank you.
Okay. I'll mention again, for the question and answer session, it's easiest actually, rather than running around with a microphone, to use the slido.com, and that's, you don't have to download an app or anything like that. You just use your web browser on your phone, log into slido.com and enter hashtag EP19, and you can ask questions, and we'll be answering those at the end of the session. So to start off, the theme for this roundtable is change, and it's kind of what electric power is focused on throughout this entire event. And one of the biggest changes is that natural gas has kind of taken over and is now the leading source of power generation in the U.S. And you know, as you mentioned, you're getting out of the coal industry. It's kind of shifting to gas and renewables. So, is there any concern for either of you? And I guess I'll start with Chris. How does natural gas fit into your mix, and is there any concern to the shift moving away from other sources and into natural gas?
Okay, so I don't think concern maybe is the right word for us to use. I think what we look at is, so we have natural gas in our portfolio today. It has become really our combined cycle plant has become basically a baseload plant. It sits basically right on top of the shale play in the eastern U.S. There are some constraints with that system where they cannot get all the material out of the area. So it gets advantage in pricing for the fuel mix, which really helps. So if, let's just say, the market's paying $2.50 for MMBTU, we're paying $2 at that facility. So it really advantages that facility greatly from a dispatch perspective in the market. As far as a concern, like I said, I don't think we see it as a concern. What we try to do is leverage what's best for ourselves, our shareholders, but really what's best for our customer. So as the price of gas has come down and the abundant supply of gas has become available due to the whole fracking mechanism that's been revolutionized, our customers have actually benefited from that through lower pricing. So what we're trying to do is figure out how do you leverage the current assets you have today, which are still pretty good assets for us, good for our customers, and then how do you leverage future assets so you have the right mix or balance for your customers and what they have to pay for their bill, the right mix and balance you have for the industrial world that really sometimes isn't so much concerned with how their power is made, but just how cheaply can I get my power. And then you have then for us, we're a fully regulated company, then you have to also work with the regulator and say, okay, what are they looking for from us, from a company? So we have to balance all that together, but I don't think we see it as a concern. We see it as a nice transition. I think it's pretty clear that as the country goes, we're moving away from coal. We are doing that as a company ourselves. The problem is you can't do that overnight, and I think everybody recognizes that. Gas is a very, very nice transition to get from all baseload coal to where we're going to get to in the future, whether that's going to be, our belief is it'll be some type of gas as more of a baseload, and then you're going to see renewables, so wind, solar, battery, some type of hydro, maybe even more hydro than currently exists today, but some type of combination of all of those actually makes the right solution, we believe, for all of our customers.
Darius, how is gas factoring in?
Same thing. We're going to use gas generation as a transition from coal to renewables. As I already mentioned, that we're getting out of coal, and it's nothing new for us. We started retiring coal generation in 2005 with Mojave plant retirement. And since then, we're on this continuous path of transitioning our generation mix from fossil-based coal and gas into gas and renewables. And like I said, at the end of the day, we would like to be 100% renewable, but maybe a few years from now, a decade. However, it's going to be continuous transition, coal to gas to renewables, and reduction, coal first, gas, and expansion of renewables. Let me give you a little bit more history about how we're transitioning coal assets or phasing them out. I already mentioned retirement of Mojave plant in 2005. But in 2013, Senate Bill 123 was signed, which helped us to replace our Reed Garden station with renewables. We added 350 megawatts renewables and bought small 2 gas plants. And that was not easy transition because before Reed Garden shut down, and by the way, first 3 units were shut down in 2014, last unit in 2017. So by May of 2017, we're pretty much exited coal generation in the southern Nevada. But before we shut down our Reed Garden station, the plant operation changed drastically. In 2010, Reed Gardner was base-loaded facility. Then a year later, we started cycling this facility. Next year, mainly summer operation. And last summer, we started Reed Gardner plant, all 4 units, 400 times. So you can imagine what kind of challenge it was for Reed Gardner crew, changing the operating mode, learning how to do that. No one believed that, but they were able to do it. Kudos to the team. So what's the future? Right now, we want to double our renewable generation by 2023. And Kevin mentioned that last year, our coal generation was about 6%. By the end of this year, it's going to drop down to 3% with elimination of our retirement of Navajo plant. And by the way, that is going to result in 79% of coal elimination by 2020. In 2023, we'll drop down to 1%, and in 2025, end of 2025, when we retire Valmy, we're going to completely exit coal generation. Again, with renewable expansion, we're going to keep curtailing gas operation. But right now, our primary focus is to make sure we provide a good backup and a good flexibility. Our gas plants operation modes are changing also. Some of them are operating on the summertime, some of them cycling more. So it's very, very big demand on the team.
So along that same lines, do you see, with new gas generation, do you see the bigger plants being more important to you, or smaller, like aeroderivative cycling type units, or what do you think is most important?
I believe units which can respond quickly and reliable. Obviously, reliability is a primary factor, but fast response is going to be key, especially in our region, because solar generation can change drastically. Depends on the clear sky. If the cloud covers the sky, the power output can drop drastically. We have to step in with gas.
Ramp up. Chris, how does that affect you? Do you see bigger plants more important, or the more flexible ones?
So we're actually right in line with Darius. We don't see building the big, like 1,100 megawatt baseload gas plant. We don't see doing that in the future. It's all going to be about what other services can you offer. So fast response is certainly one. Can you provide any type of regulation for the grid? So with renewables and wind, how they do cycle on and off, they can create some voltage issues and also some other issues. So can they provide any of those ancillary services where they can support all that? So I think what you're going to see from us anyway is a smaller size plant than these large baseload plants, but also that have all these services that can support the grid and support the addition of renewables.
Okay. The Department of Energy is really spending a lot of money and resources and research on carbon capture and storage. How do you see that factoring in, or is it not going to in your case? What do you see, Chris?
So for us, so I think AEP was the first ones to actually build the first commercial scale carbon capture and sequestration where it was pulled off a slipstream of a coal-fired plant. I was involved in that project from start to finish, and it worked very, very well. But it was also on a very small scale. Less than 2% of the slipstream is all we captured, and of course sequestered in the ground, and we still monitor those wells today. So the technology works. The technology, though, very expensive. And so, for instance, if we were to basically retrofit a 1,300 megawatt plant, which is our largest coal plant, with carbon capture and sequestration to be able to do that entire facility, we have to build another 600 megawatt plant to run it. So it seems kind of counterintuitive that that's the right answer. So what we think really will have to happen is I think you need to see some significant gains in how the carbon capture piece works. So the system we had was a refrigeration system, so it's very expensive to run. And basically you chill the flue gas and then they separate out the molecule, take the molecule that's separated, compress it into a liquid and pump it in the ground. That's what we did with it. There's a couple different technologies out there, but I think somebody's gonna have to spend some good research money to basically improve the efficiency of that system. And that I think can lower the cost. But I don't think you're gonna see, I don't think carbon capture and sequestration being retrofitted on the back of an existing coal-fired plant makes a lot of sense going forward. I think as you build your new gas plants going forward, I think it makes sense to be incorporated in the construction of a new combined cycle plant. And I think if you can have some right amount of research dollars spent to lower the cost of that technology, it'll make sense. But if the cost of carbon capture stays where it is today, I don't think it'll ever be deployed commercially. Renewables are just, they're crushing it right now.
Right. Okay, do you see any, need on your, obviously you're getting out of coal, so you don't need carbon capture there, but would you consider it or see it being used in any gas plants on your fleet?
I think we're going to primarily focus on quick expansions of renewables.
Okay. Hydro, I know Appalachian Power has several hydro units. How are those facilities important to you, and how do you utilize them in your mix?
Okay, so we have hydro facilities. All of our hydro facilities are located in West Virginia or Virginia. And we just got a law passed in Virginia. It's basically a new tariff, and it's called our wind, water, and solar tariff. And we're now able in Virginia to offer 100% renewable energy to any of our customers in Virginia. So the first time we've ever been able to do that. And we do that with our hydroelectric facilities. So we tie their output to that tariff, and then you're able to offer that to our customer, and it's really at the same cost that they can buy traditional electricity from us. So the myth of if I want to buy all renewable power costs more than what I'll call traditional baseload power, we sit in a very coal-heavy area of the country, and we can provide 100% renewable power with wind, some solar, and our hydro, and we can provide it at the exact same cost as coal or gas-fired. So I think what we're seeing is those assets are very valuable to us. They're valuable to our customers. And we have, like I said, run-of-river hydro, and then we have one pump storage. Now, the pump storage facility we have, you're not allowed to count that pump storage facility as renewable, because the way a pump storage works is we'll dam the water up, we'll generate electricity during the peak of the day by letting water through the dam. We capture it in a lower pool at the bottom of the dam, and then in the off-peak hours in the evening, we'll take that same water and we'll pump it back up to the upper reservoir again. So because you're now moving the water with grid power to move it back, you're not allowed to count it as renewable. But it's still a great asset to have for our customers, where we can capture the peak of the day, wherever that is in the day, and you can basically reduce the size of your peak by running that generation. So,
Do you see any future projects, or do you have anything in the pipeline where you might be adding more pump storage, or even adding more hydro in some of your smaller facilities or upgrading facilities?
Right, so a couple things. So the state of Virginia actually passed a law 2 years ago saying that it's in the public interest to build additional pump storage. So Dominion Energy is also the other large utility that's in Virginia. We're kind of partnering with them. They're taking the lead, and we're taking kind of a back seat, but they're in the lead about looking at where could we place another pump storage in Virginia. Very hard to permit and get done because of the amount of property that you actually take up with, of course, flooding and making a lake. But we're working with them on that, trying to figure out, one, is it economical from a cost perspective, and then two, can you get it permitted in the area where it may geologically be the best, but then can you permit it in that area? So we're working on that. And then a couple other things we've done that we feel really good about is we've actually taken 2 of our hydros that are run-of-river hydro, and we've actually tied a battery storage system to the output of these. And we have a model that we built where we calculate the amount of river flow for over the last 100 years. So we think we've got a pretty good model here. And we can actually use these, the battery system not for keeping the power on the grid, but to regulate the voltage on the grid. So it's a service we provide to PJM, who is our transmission regulator. And so we're the first in the country to do that, to link this battery system and use a hydro to keep the battery charged. So we see hydro as providing a lot of neat services like that traditionally we would have never thought of in the past.
Okay. And I know Sonal Patel actually went to the National Hydro Association conference in DC recently, and there was a lot of concern that hydro plants are getting older, that they're coming up into a place where they may need to be relicensed, right, and things like that. Is that a problem for you, or do you see that just another step, and it takes a long time to get that done?
Yeah, it's just another step in the process.
Okay.
Relicensing can take up to 10 years on a hydro facility that's currently operational. So it's not for faint of heart. It takes a while to get through the process. We have upgraded all of our hydros with their generators. The type of equipment that actually monitors them is not from the 40s or 30s any longer. It's all state-of-the-art electronics that are running them. So I think our hydro fleet's a pretty good fleet.
Okay. And Nevada's governor actually just signed the bill on Monday, on Earth Day. That was the Senate Bill 358, increasing the renewable portfolio standard. You are obviously already on that path, yes, getting more solar into your system. They were actually set a goal, it wasn't part of the renewable portfolio standard, but a goal of 100% by 2050. Do you think that's achievable, or something that NV Energy could support?
Oh, of course. First of all, our ultimate goal is 100% renewables. Our dimension, what is the short-term goal? Double our renewable portfolio by 2023. But we are really very serious about keep expanding our renewable portfolio and reach 100% of renewable, on equivalent basis, of course, 100% renewable generation in the near future. Our sister company, Mid-American Energy, is on a continuous path to reach this goal. They have a 100% goal, and as a matter of fact, in 2017, they reached 50% mark. Right now, I believe in the next year or two, maybe three, they will be very close to 100%, if not there. First of all, we as NV Energy supported legislation of the Senate of the bill, and this is nothing new for us. We were expanding our renewable portfolio since 1987. We signed our first geothermal contract in '87, and that's how our journey started. We in the future, in addition to the 1,000 megawatts we already committed to build of renewable energy, we are looking into expansion, primarily in the south. We're more likely going to have a RFP on the street soon to look for another 1,000 or so megawatts.
And you mentioned geothermal. I know we're actually running a story in the May issue about how the drilling techniques that really originated from fracking and horizontal drilling with gas are being utilized in geothermal as well, where geothermal wells can be basically throughout the United States, not just in the West where we typically see them now. Do you see more geothermal within your mix?
Geothermal plants are relatively expensive. Right now we have 19, in our portfolio, 19 geothermal plants. Primary focus is on solar development in Nevada for us.
Okay. And of course, Mid-American is in Iowa is a big player, and they have, of course, wind is their major renewable there.
Correct.
Do you have wind?
We have only one plant, about 150 megawatts of wind, but wind is not a good resource in Nevada. Okay. Obviously, for Mid-American, wind is the renewables and coal is a backup. For us, it's solar and gas.
How does wind factor in Appalachian Power?
So we don't directly own any wind farms, but we have PPAs with a couple of developers, one in Invenergy that was mentioned earlier, one of the largest wind developers in the U.S. We have a couple contracts with them that we have through PPAs. We provide wind through those.
Okay. And I went to a recent conference in New York, the BNEF Energy Summit, and they were talking about battery storage and PV basically competing head-to-head and winning bids against gas-fired generation. Do you see that? Obviously, with Nevada Energy, it's probably a very viable source comparing or combining the two, your PV with the battery storage. Do you think that's going to be the wave of the future for peaker plants?
For sure. In the near future, we're going to be looking at significant expansion of the battery storage. The reason is we do not have a RTO here in the western states. For instance, for Mid-American Energy, they had an energy sink, which was MISO. They were able to export excess renewable energy out and kept expanding renewable portfolio. For us, primarily would be battery storage to keep expanding, and that's going to be also limited. We will be able, sooner or later, we'll reach saturation, and we need to, build our transmission system and able to provide us ability to export this energy out. So yes, batteries is something we seriously consider and looking into building more.
Are there any concerns about the amount of lithium it takes to create these battery systems, and if it's going to be feasible long-term on a large scale? Any thoughts on that?
I really don't know about the availability of lithium and any type of limitations. I know there are some surveys done and new areas discovered, but I don't know, Chris.
So,
it's always a concern, right? Yeah. So one of the things for a power company you like to do is you want to be able to offer a diverse mix, right? You never want to be 100% married to any one thing for your customer and for your regulator and, of course, for your shareholders. So I think if lithium becomes the going forward solution for storage, there is a concern that supply of lithium, is there enough there? And is there enough there in countries or territories or regions that we can work with that are friendly to us versus somewhere that is not? I think that's always a concern for us whenever we get into that kind of any type of exotic materials like that. But I think for battery storage for the power grid to go forward, and I mean large scale storage, It would have to be something else other than lithium. Now, I don't know what that is, but I don't see lithium being able to cover that. Certainly they work very well for what we're using them for today, but to have a battery backup that'll cover a 1,300 megawatt plant going offline, and you want to cover it for 8 or 9 hours, lithium I don't think is not going to be the answer. There has to be something else is the answer for that.
So more research and development needs
Yeah.
to be done and continue to work on that process. Okay.
But one thing that's really good about storage, though, is the pricing is coming down significantly, and it's coming down fast.
Right, it continues to.
Yep.
Another thing I wanted to talk about, Appalachian Power proposed some new programs this month, and one was an economic development fund and changes to your energy efficiency program. Do you want to touch on those a little bit?
Yeah, so the Economic Development Fund is something that we're trying to do as a company. So we are in a different part. Talking with Kevin here earlier this morning, Nevada's growing and growing, it sounds like leaps and bounds, which is great. The territory that my company serves is actually in the inverse. We are shrinking and shrinking on a very large scale on a year-over-year basis and have been now for over 5 years. So when you're losing 2,500 residential customers on a year-over-year basis, it creates a problem in a regulated power utility because the way our costs work, it's very simple, is all of your fixed costs are spread against the number of customers that basically buy your service. So if my fixed costs stay the same and my number of customers goes down every year, basically everybody's bill goes up if I don't do anything different. So that's a problem for us. So what we're focused on is we're focusing on trying to be the economic driving engine in our territory to bring new customers and industrial base back to our territory. We are partnering with the states that we work in, so Virginia, Tennessee, and West Virginia. But we have got legislation passed and also a regulatory reform in place in West Virginia where we're now earmarking dollars. It's a charge per meter per customer. We charge on a monthly basis. It kind of creates a pool of money to work on economic development. So anybody that's ever been in economic development knows one thing: you have to spend money to get money, right? So we did not have a pool of money as a company, or as in the states, did not have money to work on economic development. So we have modified the laws and got some regulation in place that creates an avenue for these funds to come in. And then we don't do that on our own. Anything that we do from an economic development standpoint is partnered with either the Commerce Department in the state that we're doing it in, and also with our regulator in the state also. So the idea is it's kind of a group of three focused on really growing the economy in the states that we're in. That's what we're working on.
Have you seen any effects yet, or is it still too new to really evaluate?
So first effect, certainly cannot tell you who it is, but right now I think we have about 130 megawatt customer that looks like is very well may take advantage of some of the things that are in the program we have and will actually relocate to our service territory. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but for us who's been losing load for the last 5 years, it's a huge add. So that's a good thing. And then the energy efficiency one, I know a lot of folks always question, well, if you're trying to grow load and trying to grow more customers, why are you turning around and offering a program that actually reduces what you sell or your product? So it would be like incentivizing one of the auto manufacturers to make less cars. Right. And so the reason we do that is we have a lot of customers, not undifferent than this facility here, that they're some of our better customers, some of our larger customers, and they're looking a way to get more competitive. And energy efficiency is how you do it. Now, whether it's through going back to the most basics of just changing these light bulbs over to LEDs, or is it actually going to the building management system that actually runs your building? And that's where the real money is. So if you can get in your building management system and get where you can help them manage their system, make their system smart, and then also look at the equipment that's on their system and figure out, can I change, is there some business plan that says changing out this old X piece of HVAC equipment to a new modern, more efficient, higher SEER piece of equipment? Is there a business plan that says it makes money to do that today? And then they reap the rewards, basically, for lack of better terms, in a smaller utility bill. And so that's one of the other programs we have in place. And it's for industrial customers, commercial customers, and to residential customers. And we think that we'll see a lot of traction in that. We think those are good programs to offer. It does help our customers at the end of the day, and that's something that we're all about.
So is there a business model where you can actually be the kind of make money off of this service, or is it something where you're just helping customers and hopefully the benefits pay back in the end?
So it's both, depending on the state that you're in and depending on how the tariffs are currently set up. Some of our states, if we were to provide the service and then we charge a fee for the service, so to your point, make money off of it. The way that our regulatory environment is set up is that money that's made off that service then is given back to the customers. So you use that basically to reduce the customer's bill. So that's how we would do it. So we call that making headroom. It helps we have not been fortunate like NV Energy, so our rates have went up over the last 10 years. So anything that we can do to either keep rates flat or ideally reduce the rate is ideal for us. And we would use those type of revenues to help reduce the overall bill.
And I assume it creates some goodwill, not only with your customers, but with the regulators and anybody else that's
Yes.
setting your rates.
Yes.
Okay. And obviously there were some pamphlets on the seats out there talking about NV Energy's Power Shift. Can you touch on that at all? Or
Yes, PowerShift provides a number of solutions to customers to save money and reduce the energy use. One of them is smart transmitters. We can install the smart transmitters for free at the customer houses or apartments. The benefit is twofold, is dual. We as a company benefit of having ability to shave the load during the peak time. As a matter of fact, we are able to reduce load in the peak time by 230 megawatts. And last year, we had 77 events. We reduced load by half of it, on about 130 few megawatts. And that resulted in about $10 million savings for the customers. Customers can also change their thermostat setting remotely or can override our changes. So this, again, dual benefit. On an average, every customer can save up to $100 annually using the system. In between 2010 and 2013, we installed about 1.3 million smart meters. That allows us to better monitor power usage and, of course, provide some kind of demand-side management and provides analytics for our customers to better monitor the bill and determine how they want to set up the energy spend in the future.
Okay.
Additionally, we offer in-house energy assessments where an inspector comes to the house and reviews the energy use bills. Additionally, the inspector can look at the appliances, heating and air conditioning service, and offer some free LED lighting. And we offer also discounts in the stores for variable speed pumps, LED lighting, and a few more things I don't remember.
Yeah. Thanks. When Henry, of course, was talking about sustainability and how his company is going through that, and a lot of times when I think of sustainability, I think about climate change, and I don't want to get into a debate about it, but what I'd like to know is if your companies are doing anything to harden your assets to basically prepare for potential changing environmental conditions. Is there anything that you're doing to make it more resilient and reliable in your service?
Yeah, so I'll start with that. So we are definitely hardening our system. So from our transmission investment, we are, so some of the things you'll see just driving by, you go from a wood pole to a steel pole. You'll go from a larger class wood pole, go from a smaller to a larger wood class pole. Some of the things that we're doing around how we are basically modernizing the grid or making the grid really more electronic. So in the olden days of the transmission and distribution world, if an issue happened, you would know about it, and you would basically, we use the term roll a truck, put a person in a vehicle, and they would go find out where the problem was, whether that took an hour or 5 minutes, that's how long it would take. So today we're modernizing our grid where everything on our grid comes back to a centralized control room. We can monitor, switch things out, and do that all electronically, where if there is let's say a fault in our system, before we have to roll a truck, our system can actually figure out where the fault is. It can minimize the size of the fault, or basically the outage. Let's use outage because I think that's a term a lot of folks understand. Minimize the size of the outage by electronically switching things open or closed, and then also pinpoint where now we're going to go look versus driving the entire line. And so what does that do from a resiliency perspective is, one, it makes the outage, the number of folks in an outage smaller, which is very good. And then also ideally, since we're not going to travel a whole line, because some of our lines are 300 miles long, so instead of driving that entire line, I now pinpoint where I know the problem is, and I can fix that problem quicker. So ideally, the outage is now shorter. And then once the work is done, we have a thing called auto restore. And instead of technicians going out and manually switching all this stuff back, we just push one button in the control room, and basically what it does, it will switch that circuit all the way back to its normal operating mode. And all that is being done to help with resiliency and then also help with reliability. And both, we think both go hand in hand in our company. But yeah, significant investment.
Very similar approach we have. We see less wood poles and more ductile iron poles. Going to keep developing our smart grid. The first step was obviously installations of the smart meters, and so very, very similar approach.
And I know, neither Appalachian Power nor NV Energy has specifically nuclear fleets, although AEP does have some nuclear. Do you see nuclear having any role in the future? It's a carbon-free energy. They're doing advanced technologies. They're doing small modular reactors, trying to get these, and the government is funding a lot of research into that. Do you think it's ever going to take off?
So, Appalachian Power, my company, doesn't have any nuclear, but AEP as a company has 2 nuclear units located in Michigan. And they are 2 excellent running units that perform very, very well, and to your point, are carbon-free. And for all intents and purposes, when you look at fuel for it versus fuel for a coal plant or fuel for a gas plant, fuel is almost free at a nuclear plant. So the plants dispatch very low, very far down on the dispatch curve, which means they're very cost effective. But our plant is also still in a regulated environment. But going forward, AEP is not going to build any more large-scale nuclear. We are intrigued around these little, they're calling them the small package nuclear facilities. I know the government's putting a lot of money behind them. We think that there could be a future for those. Now, we don't think they're a large-scale deploy everywhere. I think there'll be a niche market for something like that. And we think that'll tie more into like a distributed generation solution set versus go build one and it'll become either like a peaker or a baseload unit. We think it'll be more revolve around the distributed generation answer. That's how we see them.
We don't see a nuclear in our future, and again, primary focus is expansion of renewables.
Okay. Aging power workforce is another thing that we've been hearing for years, and I actually just read a report that Siemens put out where they did a research on the age of the workforce, and they were at 50 years, basically, is what they came up with in the power industry. And they said 25% could retire in the next 5 years and up to 50% within the next 10 years. How does your workforce correspond to that? Do you have a concern with the age of your folks?
Yes, we do. However, in the recent years, with closure of coal plants, we're able to transition employees, like for instance, transitioning employees from regarded plant to other generating assets. We did it very successfully. We've carefully planned for it. However, in the future, there will be a concern. Obviously, we'll need to reach out to local colleges, universities, educate high school students on employment opportunities, and maybe reach out even to military, try to hire Navy.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, especially for generation. Yes, we do have a concern.
Chris?
Yeah, so for us, this is a big concern because our numbers are actually even higher than the numbers that Siemens has published. And it seems to me almost on a daily basis, 1, 2, 3 people are retiring. So the good part about working for the power company is that it's a great job, and ideally, at least when I got hired, I was told you got a job for life, So there wasn't a lot of turnover in the power industry, at least in our company. Turnover for us is less than 1% a year, so not a lot of turnover. Mm-hmm. But the problem though becomes is the way we've really challenged ourselves is, do we staff for what we are today or we were last year, or do we take a step back and say, what do we need to be in 5 or 10 years? and do we staff to that? And that's what we're trying to do as a company. So technology is driving everything, whether it's in the power industry, it's in your personal life. Technology is changing everything and how we do everything. So we're focused on figuring out, and we call it the future of work. So what is the future of work for us? So are we going to provide power? Yes. Are we going to help regulate the grid and monitor the grid? The answer is yes. But the real question is, though, so how do you do all that? And do you need the same number of workers that you have today? And I think the answer is no. But I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how many it is. And so we've been working here for about the past 6 months trying to define what do we think those things are that are going to be the future, and then what skill sets are required to do those things, and then figure out how do we either train the workforce we have today, or how do you hire the new workforce to replace that workforce in the future so they have those skills. So we think there's a gap currently on where we're at, but I don't think going forward we'll ever be staffed the way we used to be staffed. So for instance, if you would look at one of our coal-fired power plants, 1,300 megawatt plant, about 210 employees. If I would have a 600 megawatt or gas-fired plant, which we have, it has 22 employees. Right. So if you just do the ratio on megawatts per employee, you're not going to have the same number of employees going forward. And then if you do that same ratio from gas to solar or gas to wind, you see that same type of reduction again. So from that perspective, we're not going to be staffed the way we were in the past. The question is, what is the right staffing for the future? And that's what we're trying to understand.
And one of the sessions actually that led off the day yesterday was talking about attracting millennials and different ways to do it, whether it's with mentorships or whether it's with video advertisements and things like that. Do you have any secrets to getting through and making power interesting and desirable for the millennial age?
So I'll answer that. So I've been in my role now for 2 years, and when I took this role, the first question I asked is, what are the demographics for the organization? And if you'd have known that beforehand, you probably wouldn't have took the job. Mm-hmm. So, but what it did tell me was this: is you got to figure out how do you fix that problem. And so we actually went to a college hiring fair about 2 weeks when I was into this role, and every student I talked to that was at the fair had never heard of our company. And ideally, probably all of them, their parents at a minimum, were customers of ours. So that's a problem. So then you start talking to them, and then so we went and met with the guidance counselors, and the guidance counselors at the college level are not selling the power industry. All right, so then we went back down and we talked to the counselors at the high schools, and then we went to the counselors at the middle schools. And what we have found is we're starting in the middle school is where we have to focus, because when you start talking to a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, or an 8th grader, that's kind of the influential years when they start figuring out what is my track for the high school, and then after that's what's my track for post-secondary school. So we're starting in the middle schools, and we're focusing in the middle schools on education about the industry, about what kind of jobs there are in the industry. So a lot of folks thought that we talked to thought, well, you have to be an electrical engineer to work at a power company. Well, we have those and everything else. To doctors, to meteorologists, you name it, we employ it. So the idea is we have done, I think, at least my company has done a poor job in our service territory of informing what we have and what we offer. So we are very focused on starting in that, usually around that 7th and 8th grade time frame, in the schools, talking to the kids, following them through high school. Hopefully then when they're ready to get out of high school and make that choice, they take a technology or an engineering career path that lines them up for our industry. And then on top of that, we've started high school internships this year. We're going to work 10 high school interns, first time we've ever done that. And these are some of the kids we've been talking to now for the past 2 years. And the idea there is we'll pay them. So a lot of these internships are unpaid, so you entice them with a little bit of money, which never hurts. But the idea then is you kind of spur that on, and maybe when they get through college, then we run them as an intern through college, and ideally you've now hired your employee you've been with for maybe 4 to 8 years, ideally. So that's how we're trying to address it.
And I suppose in the past, when you only had turnover of 1% or less, it wasn't as important to get the word out and attract these people because you could just find them.
That's right.
So,
in generation, we're facing a little bit different problem. With question 3 and facing potential deregulation, our focus was to do more with less, cross-train our employees to be able to operate our plants. On T&D side, we do have an apprenticeship program, and we're reaching out. But again, for me, for generation, we were waiting for solutions, whether we're going to regulate or not. And right now, this is behind us. We're obviously going to look into it bigger.
Okay. And Chris, you brought up technology and how it is changing the landscape. And we, of course, have been promoting our Connected Plant Conference all morning, so I don't want to give another pitch out for that. But it is coming up in Atlanta next month, or next day, February, 25th to the 27th. Are you implementing any innovative digital technologies, or how are monitoring and diagnostic centers and things like that helping your operation be more efficient?
So for us, it's actually, we're kind of in our infancy phase of this, but what it does for us is it allows us to use, so no different, we're putting in the AMI meter, the smart meter. So that's really what I call the first interface with the customer, where you're now getting real-time data back from the customer on their usage and their habits. And there's some software out there that you can look at that meter, know what pieces of appliances are running in their house, when they start, when they stop. And actually, there's some predictive monitoring that you can do that actually can tell them that the compressor on your AC unit is starting to, within the next 6 months, is going to go out. And a lot of folks look at that and think, that's craziness, but that is reality, and we have that today in place, and it's running. And the problem is, well, not a problem, the thing that's really neat about it is that the more it runs, the more accurate it is, because it has more data fed into it. So it's just like any model that you run. The thing that I always like to talk to folks about, and this is something that we're working on, so I talked earlier about an outage, and this will kind of tell you how far things are transitioning for our company. We would have an outage traditionally in the past. We would get a call from the customer that says, my power's out, or we would see it in our distribution system, and we would then roll a truck, go find the problem. Then they would manually switch out to minimize the problem, fix the problem, manually switch it all back, and with anywhere from 2 to 8 to 10 hours, problem is solved. Today, we're piloting a program in our company where the system picks up the outage probably before the customer knows, because the AMI meter on the house will tell us that there's an outage at that physical location. It feeds back to our what we call our DDC, which is our distribution center that monitors all the distribution center, or the TDC, the transmission center. It'll feed back to them that there's an outage at that location. It'll look at everything around that location, minimize the size of the outage within milliseconds. It'll pinpoint where we think the problem is based on all the meters that said they had power and didn't have power. It'll automatically download a GPS coordinate to our servicer's truck, who has an onboard drone in his truck. He will drive to the area. The drone will dispatch from his truck before he ever gets out and goes and looks at where the problem is, takes video of everything it sees, feeds it back into the computer system, and before that technician leaves his truck, knows where the problem is, what the problem is, and how to fix it. He never gets out of his truck. And we can do all that within maybe 15 minutes.
And you're doing that today?
We're piloting that right now.
Wow.
And the thing that's really neat about that is, so if anybody's used a drone with video technology, it's amazing. But the problem is, you have to look at all the video. So if I'm going to do that, I might as well just send somebody to go look at it. So the technology that we're using right now, we load in basically a set of parameters, either through photo recognition or through some data that we enter. It goes out and looks at all that, and all it is, it just does an exception. So if it sees everything that it's supposed to see, it comes back and says there's no problem here. If it goes out and sees an exception, that's the only video you'll see is the exception to the rule. And that's how it helps your technician find the problem quickly. So we're piloting that right now. There's a lot to this. So talking about training and the workforce of the future. So now the technician that's in the truck has to have a pilot's license, because he now has an onboard drone he's responsible for. Now, not a pilot's license like flying a commercial aircraft, but a pilot's license to fly a drone. And so the problem is every state's kind of taking this on. So now we work in 3 states. Now I have to have 3 sets of licenses for people. So do I do that, or do I say, okay, only you have it in Tennessee, only you have it in Virginia? So it creates a whole management issue. But we have to push the envelope on that to make it work. But that's kind of where we're headed with technology. We think it's pretty neat what it's going to do for us.
No doubt, it is neat.
We have a generation, we have a monitoring and a diagnostic center. We established it years ago. I would say this is pretty mature center now. At the beginning, all these reports generated by center were not really accepted by the plants. They thought that they are really not real. So we have developed models which are analytical models, real-time, thermodynamical, as well as like smart signal, neural network type models. These models run in the background and mimic plant operation. This is tremendous. We have tremendous availability to detect any type of deviations and diagnose equipment. As a matter of fact, it helped us avoid a number of catastrophic failures in the past, which could have been really costly. We avoided millions of dollars and, of course, downtime due to this center. Technicians in the center are very knowledgeable and have a great rapport with the plants, very respected. When they call the plants know that they have a serious problem. So great benefit for generation fleet. We're trying to expand it to T&D side, but we've just started that.
How did you encourage that respect? How did the people that are working in that center come from the plant?
Exactly. We have operators who came from the plants. They're very, very knowledgeable what is really important in the plant operation, what is trivial. So, and then we have a process, making sure we sort out all the notifications and only focus on critical, rather than small, tiny miscellaneous.
Yeah. So, of course, when you get into technology, you get into cyber issues, and cybersecurity is, of course, really important. Wall Street Journal reported recently that PG&E, DTE Energy, City Utilities of Springfield, Missouri, and Duke Energy were all cited in the past. That was from 2014 to 2016, I believe. And Duke was reportedly fined $10 million for cyber breaches. So are you worried about cybersecurity, and can you share anything that maybe your company is doing to mitigate or minimize the threat to your systems?
So I worry about it all the time, yes, but we're not really allowed to share what we're doing. But I will tell you, when I started in this company, there were 0 people that worked in the cybersecurity group. Now there's almost 200. So it's, since our parent company is American Electric Power, I think a lot of folks may think that we're the power company for all of America, which, of course, isn't real. But I know, talking to our IT guy, it's nothing for us to get 200,000 hits a day trying to penetrate our system. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, the name recognition to a Russian or a Chinese hacker might really affect you guys. That's something.
It's a very, very serious subject for us. What I can say is we implemented top 20 critical cybersecurity controls and obtained ISO 27001 certification, which is a very rigorous process, includes auditing and a lot of really sophisticated tools.
Okay. Last month, President Trump actually signed an executive order to improve the coordination of the national resilience against electromagnetic pulse events. And that's been something that's on my radar for a while because I've interviewed some people about it. And they talk about how the grid could actually be knocked out for months, and transformers could take 6 months to replace and to get replacements. Do you worry about those sorts of things happening? Electromagnetic pulse or geomagnetic disturbance? There was a few years ago that a sun pulse missed us by a few hours. Does it concern you? Do you think there's anything that can be done to protect or at least prepare for disruptions like that? Well, it's the same thing like pandemic, terrorism, earthquakes. Yes, we do consider that. Try to prepare for it. Also, like you mentioned, transformers. We're buying spare transformers. Some of them are universal transformers, so we can use them at various locations. Yes, that is a very serious concern.
Okay. So we're in the same boat. We've partnered with multiple other utilities, and we together have formed a separate standalone company, and we're going to buy transformers, switches, resistors, and they're going to be strategically stationed throughout the U.S. Of course, you can't say where, but the idea there is you're buying those assets because I think everyone hopefully knows if you have a large station transformer go out today, you're not getting one tomorrow, right? It's anywhere from 12 to 18 months, depending on what it is you're buying and where you're getting it from and what's in their queue and all that. But so the idea is you buy those assets today, You put them in storage somewhere remote to where it's close to the grid, so if you have to use them, you can. You have a group that maintains that equipment, so if it's ever needed, you know it's ready to go. But we've done that, and we think it's probably one of the better approaches we can have, not from AEP's perspective, but from the power grid perspective.
Okay. And this is my last question, then we're going to get into some of the Q&A, because I see we've already got them loaded up on here, and we've got some good questions that have already come in. Again, feel free to enter them at any time, and we'll get through them when we get to that. It's at slido.com as it shows on the screen. But one thing I'd like to talk about, and I saved this for last because I think it's really kind of on target with the theme that we're aiming at, which is change. And I watched a presentation by Tony Seba. He was speaking at the conference on world affairs in Boulder, Colorado last April. And it's actually on YouTube if anybody wanted to look it up after the fact. But he's a author and educator and a self-proclaimed thought leader and entrepreneur. And he's got a bachelor's from MIT and an MBA from Stanford, so he's presumably a smart fellow. And he says that clean disruption will be the fastest, deepest, and most consequential energy and transportation disruption in history. He pointed to the cell phone as an example and basically said, in 1985, AT&T hired a consulting firm to do some research, and they wanted to know how many cell phones would be in service in the year 2000, 15 years in the future. And they came back from the study and said there'd be 900,000. That was way off. There were, in fact, 109 million. So AT&T kind of missed the golden opportunity to get in at the early stages there, and they didn't get into the cell phone business until they bought out Macaw Cellular, which was the largest cellular provider, and they paid $11.5 billion to do that. And he pointed to some other examples where Kodak invented the digital camera, but didn't really make any money off of it because they didn't realize how important it would become that nobody would be developing film anymore. So these type of disruptions happen, and they happen quickly. He showed an image of the streets in New York City in 1900 where there was all horses and one car on the street, and 14 years later there were all cars and one horse on the street. So it doesn't take a lot of time once that trajectory gets going. Do you think this clean energy revolution and electric vehicles and all of the other changes that are taking place are going to affect the power industry similarly? Will we see complete changes to smaller systems, more home systems, and the power company that we're used to kind of disappearing? Is that possible?
Power company still offers a lot of value. Well, let me first address electrical vehicles. In Nevada, we have over 1 million registered vehicles. Only 5,000 of them are electrical. So I don't believe, at least it's my personal opinion, that the expansion of electrical vehicle will be similar or comparable to cell phones. One thing we really need to consider is what kind of impact cell phone made to an average person's life. It was pretty much life changer how we communicate, exchange information, pictures. From the perspective of electrical vehicle or renewable energy, to the end users, we do not see such a big difference. It's hard to distinguish whether it's a green electron or fossil in the household. Of course, it's very important to reduce our carbon footprint and go in these directions, and again, energy is wholeheartedly supporting this. But I don't believe that the change is going to be drastic. Another factor is need for significant investment. Putting a rooftop solar or buying electrical vehicle is not as cheap as buying a cell phone. So that is another factor. Let me talk a little bit about separation from the grid. We can grow vegetables in our own garden. However, we may prefer go to and buy them in a grocery store. So the same thing here. Depends on the cost of the energy. And again, energy is going to offer more and more, up to 100% renewable. Customers will be able to decide what is their preference, using their own or have utility providing energy, or a combination, use utility for a backup. So again, our role as utility will be integrating all this together, electrical vehicles, renewables, rooftop solars, everything in one reliable, low-cost grid.
Chris?
Yeah, so from our perspective, change is great, but change is opportunity too. And so we look at it all as an opportunity for us and for our customers and for the states we serve. We see the change is coming, and it's clear it's coming. Now, how fast? I'm not so sure that we're going to maybe get agreement on, is it next year, is it 2 years or 5 years? But I think the change is coming, and I think it's coming, and I think it's coming from all angles. Certainly, we're changing internally as a utility from what our customers are asking us to do. We're probably trying to change faster than our regulators want us to change. So we have to work with the regulators and then also with our legislators to make sure that if the legislators are going to pass laws, they make sense for all, right? So what we don't want to do is get into picking a winner and a loser, because we don't think that helps anyone at the end of the day. There is some folks in my service territory that, for all intents and purposes, are never going to be able to buy an electric car. They're not going to have a home management system. There will be no value in them because of the home they live in to have that type of system. So there are some things where there's always going to be some financially challenged people that are not going to be able to take full advantage of all the things that we have today and the things we'll have in the future. So, and I loved his point, someone still needs to be able to integrate all that. So for that customer, the traditional utility still provides the traditional service. But at the same time, we have to be able to also help the customer that wanted to put solar panels on their roof, put a charging station in their garage, and then also maybe a Tesla battery wall in their basement. So maybe they have it all. And so we have to be the integrator of all of that to make all of that work. And the idea at the end of the day, though, is for us, the general customer, is you never see that happening. It's all integrated and it works, either comes offline, goes online, makes more, makes less. All of that happens and is seamless to the end user. And if that happens, that means the utility is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. It's taking all the inputs, all the outputs, managing them in a way so that the end use customer benefits from whatever it is they want or can afford, maybe is the right way to put it. And then we're able to also satisfy the standard utility customer that can't afford it. And so you can meet all of those needs very seamlessly without anyone noticing that you're doing it. And if we can do that, then I think that's what I would call the utility of the future.
Excellent. So with that, we'll transition into our questions. And we've got the first one on top there. With gas providing the base load, how vulnerable are you in event of escalating gas prices due to coal fleet retirement and lack of base load competition?
I'm thinking about recent event. Last winter, gas price spiked from about $3 per decatherm to $6. At $6 for a while, then spike all the way up to $18. Obviously, that created significant impact. Fuel flexibility and the fuel diversification is, of course, a great hedge for events like that. We were able to, of course, during the last event, we were able to use our coal generation to mitigate the risk and exposure. The solution would be developing the second fuel, which is renewable, with battery storage.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so for us, so the polar vortex, I think everybody's heard that term now for past couple winters. When that happened to us here this last winter, gas supply was shorted to some of our facilities. The original gas system as designed was designed as a heating system for homes and businesses and really not for power generation. I know it's quickly changing, but that was the original design. So some of our facilities were shorted on gas, so we were forced out, could not run our gas facilities. So our coal facilities were able to carry the load, and they carried the load in the majority of PJM's footprint. It was coal that carried the load, coal and nuclear. So there are concerns with that. You have to have some type of diversification. As I said earlier, I think if you're all in on any one type of supply, I think you're setting yourself and your customers up for a bad day sometime. I just don't know when. So if it's not going to be coal for diversifying for gas, then it has to be wind and solar, and then some type of a storage system or hydro that can kind of lump all that together to say we have some extraordinary weather event, and at the end of the day, the system itself can cover it. So like I say, the end-use customer doesn't see a huge impact because of some environmental event that's happened. So that's kind of how we do it and we see it. Our coal plants perform. Availability was 100% for that entire polar vortex for us, which means that we really took advantage of the market that was available and helped our customers out.
Great. Are you planning to use peaking gas power to balance your solar assets? If so, large peakers or small peaker units? Kind of touched on that.
So in generation and NV Energy, there's no new power generation. We're not going to expand existing gas fleet. What we're looking into, though, is we're looking into upgrading these units so they could produce more megawatts, or also turndowns, deeper turndowns, which will help remain unit online during the low needs, rather than cycling these units.
So a little different answer for us. So we're actually looking at peaking units, but not in the traditional term that a lot of folks are used to peaking units. We're looking at a peaking unit of a 1 or 2 megawatt unit tied with a battery, strategically placed to fix some known issue we have in our either transmission or distribution system. So they will be site-specific, almost like a distributed generation solution set to a problem we have, and those will have to be economical. So would it be cheaper to build a new line, upgrade the voltage on the line we have, build a new substation and a tie, or is it cheaper to do a 1 or 2 megawatt gas-fired with some type of battery on it, and is that the right solution for the customer? So we think we're going to see more and more of that, and it'll be more not broad-based, but more surgically placed about how to solve a solution, an issue we have.
Okay. Do you have any ongoing or future plans to attract and train more women to key roles in your organizations?
We are equal opportunity employer, and we promote our employees. We obviously love to see women in the key roles, and we do have them in the key roles.
Okay. So I'm going to expand on that, and maybe not just women, but really a more diverse workforce for us. So large company over 11 states, we have a diverse workforce, and it's excellent. But the problem, though, is I think for our company, when you look at it, is that diverse workforce is spread over 11 states. And when you dig into each state, it doesn't look that diverse. So, for instance, in my company, not a lot of diversity in the Appalachian Power Company. And so for us to be the company of the future, in my opinion, we have to represent what our customer base looks like. And currently today, we don't do that. So not only just women, but all minorities. We have to diversify really the mix of employees in our organization, and we have to diversify the leadership in our organization. And that's what we're working to do.
What do you consider the main driver for curtailing thermal generation? For example, clean air or economics, especially when renewable generation is unreliable?
I believe that renewable generation will be reliable, and I think it's both. Clean air is critical for us. And at the end of the day, eliminating fuel completely, and with cheaper and cheaper technology, renewables is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, I think it's all of the above. So the current administration has been very aggressive in trying to either repeal, remove, replace any previous administration's rules to try and really help the coal industry. And so we are a large coal burner. We're right in the heart of coal country. And I will tell you that all of those things aren't helping because economics are driving the solution set. So we as a company are focused on reducing our CO2 emissions. What we've decided to do really as a company is get out of the election cycle compliance and get into the compliance program that we can live from now on. And so that's a carbon reduction program for us. So when we look at it from that perspective, what we're trying to basically do is figure out what's the right solution for all versus either some new administrations in place, some new governors in place. So what's the right solution? So that's a smaller CO2 footprint for our company, clearly, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. As coal plants retire, are you looking at repurposing these sites?
Yes, we do. Prime examples, the Reed Gardner site. We have retired Reed Gardner, as I mentioned, in 2017, but this is prime site for any other new developments. We have water there, rail transportation, transmission lines. So these plants, these locations are always prime locations for new developments. Also, we may consider repowering. In case of Valmy, who knows how the situation will look like in 2025. Obviously, we will get out of coal, but we may convert it to gas operation.
So for the facilities that we've retired, and we've retired a lot of coal plants, we have figured out that what we are not is we are not a demolition contractor, we're not a remediation, that's not what we do. So we are actually selling the sites to folks that do that for a living. But the idea behind the sale is under that sale is they have to get that property back to what we term as a brownfield, which is now ready for redevelopment. And what we've done so far is we've sold 4 facilities so far, and of the 4, 2 of them are now ready and are being marketed now for new development, and that's less than 2 years. So we think that's the right way to go. When we shut our facilities down, we were probably the largest employer in the community that we were in, and so it was devastating for the community. So we've tried to set up a process where quickly get these facilities down, get them remediated, and then get it ready for redevelopment so something else can then move in, because to Darius's point, rail, water, electricity, it's all available on that site. So it's kind of, from an economic development standpoint, you've got a leg up over everyone else. So it's kind of a premier site. So that's what we're trying to do.
Are you targeting mainly like manufacturing or industry, or what, or other energy type of?
All the above.
Anything? Okay.
Yeah, all the above.
Have your utilities looked much into peer-to-peer energy trading utilizing blockchain technology, particularly for rooftop solar storage and EVs?
And not to my knowledge, I may not be familiar.
Okay.
So we've looked into this a lot and have spent a lot of time on blockchain and blockchain technology. And I'll tell you, I think, in my opinion, I think it can be a game changer for us in the future. Now, the only problem though with blockchain is you have to get everybody to agree to use the right blockchain. And so if you don't get everybody to agree to use that, then it's worthless, because all you're going to really then have is everybody has their own spreadsheet, for lack of better terms. So until we can get everybody on board to agree who has the right one or what is the right one, if we can do that, then there's true synergies come out of it. And I think it'll revolutionize the business of just transactions in general, and it can be a huge game changer for us.
Okay. Besides building new assets to deal with the growth of renewables, are there improvements you are making to your existing facilities to make them dispatchable?
Well, I believe the question is about dispatchable renewables or fossil. Let me just address the gas turbine plants. Of course, we are looking into making them more flexible, more responsive to the new demands, and I already mentioned potential upgrades of the gas turbine units, both ways, increasing power as well as reducing the minimum load.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing a lot of investment in this. So for our existing coal fleet, one of the things we've done is on the steam turbines themselves, what's called a steam path upgrade. And really all that really means is, to keep it very simple, is the same amount of heat input and you get a higher output out of the machine. So for really all intents and purposes, you just now have made emissions-free megawatts out of a coal facility. So we've done that. Those are good dispatchable megawatts for us. We're looking at putting batteries on some of our coal facilities, and you would do that to help with regulation, so it makes them more dispatchable. And then I already talked about the battery we put on one of our run-of-river hydros already.
How do you do that steam upgrade? I mean, is that a turbine upgrade?
Yeah, it's actually a physical components, piece and parts are changed, and it actually changes the steam flow through the turbine, makes it actually more efficient, and you can get more megawatts out of the machine that way.
Okay. Are your battery systems being used to reduce cycling on remaining fossil generation units in addition to making up shortfall during the nighttime?
We do not have a battery systems yet.
So ours does not make up anything in the nighttime. We are using ours strictly to help either provide a service in PJM to meet a need, whether it's voltage regulation or anything like that. But we haven't built any battery system yet that would actually just extend on the life if there was an outage of some sort.
Okay. I thought you did have 3 solar plants that had batteries.
We will.
Oh, you will. Okay. In regards to utility infrastructure reliability, maintenance, and construction, have you introduced the use of UAV drone technologies into workflows? Do you see how that would be useful?
We're just beginning this process, so we're not really advanced in that.
So we have a bunch of them actually. We have like 130 of them. And so the problem is we have 130 of them. So they're all different. They all do different things. They all have different abilities. And the problem that we're having is you probably would, I would like to see us decide on one platform. and go with one platform. And we have ones that are the size of your hand. We have ones that are, about half the size of this screen. I mean, they have all sizes. And so why do they get so much bigger? So you need a bigger drone so it has a longer flight path range, or can do these. So we have a couple of drones that can actually do physical work while they're in the air. And so we're looking at all that kind of stuff, trying to figure out what is the right answer. And I'm pretty sure that we're not going to have it figured out in the next year or two, but we're going to probably shrink the size of what we're working on to make it more manageable. We have a whole group that is just dedicated just to drone and drone technology, and how do we implement that in our system, and how do we use it to improve our workforce, how do we use it to help our workforce, and really how do we use the technology from it. So I know I talked earlier about video off a drone. If a drone just goes and videos everything, if there's not a software package available that can look through that video for you and tell you that there's an anomaly that you're looking for, then for all intents and purposes, I can just send a person for the same amount of time to go look. So I have to have some type of technology that'll sort through all that video very quickly and only tell me where it finds anomalies, and that's what will make us more efficient. The drone itself flying out and back, that doesn't do anything except folks like to fly them. I get it. I know it's a fun toy and everybody loves them. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't make us more efficient, well, then it's something we shouldn't be doing.
Right. How does your utility manage the pace of startup innovation with the pace of utility and regulatory decision making?
That's a great question. You want to just take?
Yeah, so this is something we deal with every day. So we've actually, in our company, we have started a business incubator and a technology, lack of a better term, shop. And we've moved them out of our corporate headquarters into their own space. And the reason we did that is we do not want to have, this is how we've done it for 30 years, which is a kind of a typical answer that you get in a regulated utility. And we've also staffed it with folks that don't come traditionally from the utility space. And we've done that for a couple reasons. What we're trying to do is say, look, here's an idea. So this whole drone thing came through this group. And when we first thought of drones, we just thought that the only value a drone brought to us, the utility, was I didn't have to send a man or a woman walking over the mountainside and risk on a slip, a trip, a fall, some type of injury, which we have a lot of. So we thought, okay, I just don't have to walk that. That was where we thought the value in drones were. They came in, and within 2 months' time, they've had all these other things come up. It's like, wow, these things can really be beneficial. So, but the problem, though, is they can come up with a lot more solutions and answers a lot faster than our regulatory commission will allow us to deploy. So now you have to figure out so how do you take that decision-making process and these things that you can use to make you more efficient, how do you get your regulatory or your legislator now on board that this makes sense, and then can you get it done fast enough? And right now that process is lagging behind. Some of our states are more progressive than others, and sometimes you got to protect them from themselves and kind of hold them back a little bit. And then other states are like, I kind of like how things kind of are going today. So we try to figure out and we try to educate them. What we have found is that the best education is taking them and showing them something versus trying to do it in a PowerPoint or sitting in a meeting room. So we try to show these drone demonstrations and the technologies and the things that are out there. And then actually in May of this year, we've invited all of our legislators and regulators to Columbus, Ohio, and we're setting up a thing called Illumination Energy Summit, and we're going to show them all the technology that's available. And the idea is not to say that this works for you in your territory, but this is what's available and folks are using now, and that we're kind of falling behind. And the idea is to spur on that thought process, how do I incorporate some of this into my territory? But we're going to have to kind of push that decision-making process.
Okay, we're coming up on the top of the hour, but I think we have time for one more. So do you foresee, and I think this is directed at NV Energy, do you foresee more urban or corporate exits like we heard from MGM earlier? And if so, how is it impacting your strategy?
Well, we're going to be very competitive. We're going to offer our customers very competitive product and customize the product to their needs. I already mentioned last winter event when where gas price six-folded. To avoid such events, we can provide hedges or some strategies, and I think this is something in addition to the price, which would be attractive to our customers. So again, we're going to work with the customers and try to retain as many as we can.
Okay. Chris, do you have anything to add? Do you see any defections at your utility, or is that?
Yeah, so in Virginia, there's a law in Virginia that if you're a 5 megawatt customer, then you can actually go shop the market, really no different than what was explained here today. So the problem when they first passed the rule in Virginia was we had customers leave, and when you lose a 5 megawatt customer, that is a huge hole in your company. And so the problem was when it first passed though is, so that customer left, still took full advantage of our wires, our transmission distribution system, because that's what got the power to their facility. There was no means methods kind of established for them to pay for that. So when they left, really all the other customers kind of picked up the bill for them. So it was a cost shifting. And from that perspective, that doesn't work. So we were able legislatively this year to fix that and say, if you are a 5 megawatt customer and you want to shop, that is fine. You can go shop the market and you can buy your energy from anywhere you want. But if you leave, you then have to pay a 3-year capacity price for us to provide that. So no different, I think MGM said it was $82 million they paid. It's the same scenario. So you're going to pay a fee that basically says by you leaving, the other customers that remain don't actually subsidize you to leave. So we were able to get that fixed. And so now if folks, they want to shop, they can if you're over 5 megawatts, and it doesn't impact the existing customer base that's there. So we feel okay about it now. So we've lost 5 customers to date that are 5 megawatts and larger. And right now, when we brought up our new wind, water, and sun 100% renewable tariff, the other 2 that were wanting to leave are now coming to us to sign up for that tariff, and are not going to leave. So we were missing some of the things that some of our customers wanted. So we were able to now to provide those, and I think that's what we have to do a better job is listen to what do our customers want, then how do we go provide that for them.
Okay, well, great job, and let's give them a round of applause.